All right. Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today. Coming this evening to be a part of our evening vigil. And my name is Catherine Fleming Bruce. I'm with Keynote to Global Commons, and we are part of a national effort to hold these vigils today. There are more than 300 vigils happening around the country. So we had a day of remembrance here. We had an event earlier today at noon here at the State House. We had a panel of scholars to speak, and now that's something that you can see online. This is our final event for the evening. So really thank you for being here. We're going to start with our partners here, Heather Odom from Charleston, and she's going to introduce a participant from Hilton Head who had an event today, and a participant from Spartanburg, and then we'll have our in-person speakers do their thing. So,
okay, great. Great. And thank you everybody for coming. I hope everyone is safe and doing the COVID-friendly things there while you're outside. My name is Heather Odom, as Catherine said, and I represent Carolina for All, 501(c)(3) that is definitely involved with all the things important to South Carolinians as it relates to voting rights and voting access. And it's really actually nice that everybody is here with their bullhorn that's going to talk about how they felt when January 6th took place last year and how it shocked all of us, but at least we're able to articulate and talk about what that meant. And with that being said, we have two people not there with you, but here in the internet space to kind of voice their feelings and sentiments as activists and leaders in their community about the events that happened on January 6th. And so we're going to start with Mr. Charles Mann, who is from the South Carolina Crowd Academy in Greenville, Spartanburg. Mr. Mann, take it away.
Good evening, South Carolina, and I hope you can hear me clearly. As I thought about this event and this day, January 6th, I could not help but think about where I was a year ago today. January 6th, 2021, my wife and I were driving from Chicago to South Carolina. We were in Chicago for the holidays and returning home. During the afternoon, my wife got a text from a friend. It said something like, "Can't believe what's happening in Washington." We were listening to music in the car and did not know what was going on. So I picked up my phone and went to my news feed. I could not believe what I saw in the headlines. Trump supporters were storming the Capitol. Our fellow citizens were storming the Capitol, all to stop the certification of the presidential vote proclaiming Joe Biden our next president. I could not believe what I was reading. So we turned on the radio and horror set in. We were crossing from Kentucky into Tennessee, the heart of Trump country. We were actually afraid, and I really mean afraid, but at the same time, we needed gas. We pulled into a gas station, and I said to my wife, we have to be careful, and we have to get out of here fast. And we did. But along the way, we were so guarded. We watched cars as they passed us and everything until we got home a few hours later. And when we were able to relax a bit, because we were really tensed on the drive, we talked to some friends and family about the storming of the Capitol, an actual insurrection to overthrow our democracy, an act to keep a twice impeached president in office after he lost an election. South Carolina, the act of insurrection has not ended. some 12 months now. So in the past 12 months, forces in our country loyal to the impeached president have been sowing seeds of insurrection, sowing seeds to deconstruct our country, sowing seeds to say our election outcomes, if they don't win, are fraudulent. That if they don't win elections, those elections are stolen. South Carolina, our country came so ever close to a coup d'etat. We came so close that this country's top military leader, chairman of the Joint Chiefs, put in place plans to block any effort to overthrow the newly elected president. South Carolina, the insurrectionists are working hard to prop up the lie and to pass restrictive voting laws to support the lie. Today, we have suppressive laws in the state of Georgia that would make it a crime to give a voter a bottle of water while waiting to cast a vote. Today, we have a state in our country that has passed a law to make it a crime to actually protest. Today, we have state legislatures who want to pass laws making it illegal to talk about race in education. Today, we have two bills in Congress, For the People Act and the John Lewis Voting Act, that are stalled and may not become law. Two bills that would create national standards for voting rights in our country to help guarantee citizens their constitutional right to elect representatives of their choice. And my friends, that is why we are here. We're here to say, let us not roll back the tides to the days of Jim Crow, a Jim Crow with a new suit who talks smoothly while all the time saying no to you and to me. We are here to say our democracy matters. We are here to say every person has a right to vote, regardless of color, creed, or political beliefs. We are here to say to our 2 senators and 7 congressional people, pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and the For the People Act. We're here to stand for our democracy. We're here to stand also for fair redistricting. We're here to stand for voting laws that expand the right to vote, not restrict the right to vote. Last session in our legislature, over 40 bills were introduced to make it harder for South Carolina citizens to vote, all to support the big lie. In the last election, there was not massive voter fraud in our state. There are those passing restrictive voter laws, a misguided solution in search of a problem that does not exist. We are here to say voting is a constitutional right for every citizen, not a privilege for a select few. And this means that we have to register our people to vote, we have to educate our people to vote, and we have to make sure our people vote in spite of all of the obstacles. Okay. It also means we will engage and be present for local redistricting, which is now underway in our state, the redrawing of electoral lines based on the recent 10-year census. And that we as citizens,
can you hear me?
Yes, I'm wrapping up.
Okay.
Because it's a little hard to hear out here.
Okay, and that we as citizens of our communities will engage in a process to make sure voting is fair and that we will look over their shoulders and say, no, we will not accept gerrymandering. And for that to happen, each of us, you and me, must continue to work, as John Lewis might say, get in some good trouble. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles, so much. And now we'll move on swiftly to our next speaker, Mr. Jeff Erniko from Hilton Head and from Indivisible. Jeff?
Well, yes, Heather, thank you. I'm a little confused. I see you cannot start your video because the host has stopped it. I thought I was on video. Is that intended?
Well, it is not intended.
Oh, is there something we can do about that? Because I've got my sign behind me and I was kind of hoping to use it.
Yeah, I know. We can't. Unfortunately, it's just a technical glitch, but we would love to hear your voice.
Well, I am certainly not, and I certainly wasn't planning on a speech like Charles just gave, but hooray to Charles and thank you, because that message was very important and I really appreciate it. I'm going to speak actually for the Low Country because for some reason or other, our Beaufort folks don't appear to be on here and our Bluffton folks don't appear to be on here. And then I'm in Hilton Head, but among the three of us, we had well over 300 participants today in demonstrations. And I did send videos on to Catherine.
People between their three locations.
Yes, and I did send videos on to Catherine. I will say this, we had 114 on Hilton Head, which happened to be the largest of the three, by the way. And that's because, you know, when you live in paradise, you're going to get a lot of people out. Chuckle. But we have 4 people in the group that identified themselves who were actually there in DC on January 6th. And I had actual photos that were shown to me by one of the ladies of the event itself occurring there in DC. You know, it's just appalling what happened. Of course, my memories harken back to 9/11. Charles, you were in the car. I unfortunately was in my law firm in Pennsylvania, and there were, you know, a better part of 100 of us all gathered around a couple of TVs in the conference rooms to watch the towers go down. It was astonishing. But we also, I personally and my wife, sat here in our family room primarily and watched what went on last year pretty much the whole day in astonishment. So it is really good to be able to have so many people coming out and brandishing the signs that we had made, which say democracy, not insurrection. I mean, what American is going to argue with you about that? This is not a question for the class to answer. It's it's rhetorical. But on the other hand, you know, we had a few people throwing us the bird along the highway, but largely we had a lot of people beeping their horns and putting their thumbs up and that sort of thing. We were completely prepared for the worst, not knowing what might happen. And I was going to show you, had I been able to, the security procedure that we had set up. I was actually in chief of security along with cook and bottle washer. And I have this mask that I got from my church, which says, love your neighbor. And so if we were having a security problem, I was going to put that mask on and approach the individual who was causing the ruckus. As it turned out, I didn't ever have to put the mask on. We were in good shape. So the people who we had there, many of whom have never participated in anything like this, at least on Hilton Head, were thrilled. They enjoyed it.
Okay, well, I'm gonna have to stop because we're having some technical issues, but thank you to all of you down there in
the Low Country and in Spartanburg and Charleston for doing this. So we
Yes.
really appreciate having you be a part of this event. So
Yes.
thank you so much. And we're gonna go on with the part of the folks who are here. So
Okay.
you guys hang in there with us, and we're gonna be able to, I think, put this, maybe you can put the podium a little closer. But we're gonna go ahead and have our speakers here do their thing. So,
Wonderful.
start us off, Lynn? Sure. Okay. Let me see if there's a way that we can do this and have you on the screen. Alrighty. Okay. I'm gonna get
Catherine, Catherine, okay,
Yes.
so I need you to take your background off of the video so we can see her.
Okay, no problem. Okay, there you go.
Excellent, excellent.
Okay.
Now, if she could stand a little over. Okay, wait, no, you had it right.
Yeah, there she is.
There she is. Okay, she stays right
Okay.
there. That's excellent. Perfect.
Okay.
Okay, all righty. Yes, I'm Lynn Teague with the League of Women Voters of South Carolina. And I'm very pleased to be here at this vigil for this really important commemoration. I don't feel that I have words that are adequate to the importance of it, because it really is about whether our democracy is at risk or not. It was certainly at risk a year ago today. People were violent in our Capitol building. For the first time, the Confederate flag was in our congressional halls. And the rule of law was put at risk. And this just shows, among other things, how very divided our country is now. What we must have is the rule of law. We must have opportunities to vote. We must have a meaningful vote, which is why redistricting matters so much. There are a number of federal bills that the League supports. We hope everyone will support. One will restore the Voting Rights Act, which the Supreme Court did not do away with, but did away with Section 5 under the interesting rationale that racism is gone in our country. And we also have a larger bill in Congress that we support, which would do much more, would make sure that redistricting is done fairly, and that people have an opportunity to register to vote online and up until the day of the election. There's no reason not in terms of technical issues now. There's, the days of somebody having to get on a horse and carry a list of voters from place to place is over. And it would ensure absentee voting for people who have very complicated lives now. Everybody isn't free the same day. At the State House here in South Carolina, we have a lot of bills that are important for voting in elections, and we have the redistricting process underway. The state, Senate, and House have been redistricted. The Senate drew a decent map. The House did not. They drew an awful one. The congressional map is still up for grabs, and there's another meeting on that Monday. They are starting the regular session on Tuesday, and we see a huge number of very unpleasant bills that are predicated on the assumption that school teachers are teaching students to hate themselves. School teachers are our neighbors, our friends, our family members all over South Carolina. They do not go into teaching with the goal of making people hate themselves. They go into teaching hoping to teach people to have richer, better lives and make a decent living and go on to do a credit to what they were taught. So why are we having those bills? And then we have all the bills about trans athletes. Mm-hmm. And you would think that there was a giant migratory horde of trans athletes from the number of bills we're seeing. The problem is a lot of these bills aren't there to be passed. They're there to keep people angry at other people, to divide us. They're there to make sure that some people are upset enough, worried enough, threatened enough, that they'll be sure to get out and vote for the people who file these bills. It's very manipulative and it's not honest. Most of these bills will not get a hearing. Some of them will, they shouldn't. And so we need to pass a lot of really important bills, things that would do things like, for example, actually improve election security, confidence in the public by having what are actual sound statistically managed audits required under statute in a standard method. We need state laws to protect absentee voting and to ensure that people understand that it's secure too. We want secure and we want accessible for everybody. So there's a lot of really important work to be done. It's a shame that so much time and energy goes into things that are not for the benefit of our country. I can only hope that our legislators will devote more of their attention to bringing us together with sound solutions to real problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and next we have one of our members of Richland County Council, Allison Terracio. Thank you so much for being here.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm bringing a word from a local elected official here in Columbia. And I don't have a lot of time to talk with you all tonight because legislative session is heating up, and there's a group that wants me to come talk to them about what's going on too. So I think it's great that we're all paying attention and being involved. I believe that democracy is participatory. And so if you're going to your neighborhood meetings, if you're going to your council meetings, if you're gathering in groups of people to talk about issues, then we still have a good bit of hope. And I will just say that on this day, 1 year ago, my son, who is turning 13 this year, was sitting at home doing virtual schoolwork. I was on a Zoom call for work, and my boss said, "Oh my God, they're storming the Capitol." And that was the moment where I said, this is one of those times where we stop everything that we're doing and we witness this all together. And so I think it will be a day that is burned into my memory. I think it will be a day that is burned into my son's memory. And no matter how many times people try to tell you that what you saw with your own eyes was not happening, we saw it. And we have to remember, and we have to continue to show up and participate with each other. So thank you all for having me tonight. I gotta run.
Thank you, thank you. Next we have Dylan. Come on up, Dylan, say a word.
Okay. All right. Can y'all hear me too? This way? And that, will that work? Like the sound? No?
You can turn this way.
Okay. My name's Dylan Gunnels. I am the founder and equity designer at the Agape Table here in Columbia, and as well as a community activist. And I was asked tonight to talk a little bit about how I remember January 6th a year ago. So like many of us, I was working from home at that point in time, and I had the news on, and agree or disagree, I often like to hear straight from the horse's mouth. And I knew that the Save America rally was going on. And so I thought, well, I'd like to kind of hear what he's having to say today that's going to save America. So I turned on the news and I couldn't find it. And I thought, Fox News, that's where I'll get it. And I was right. And so I watched his speech and the things that were being said. And I remember thinking to myself, this is a scary moment in our history. And this could go one or two ways. And I flipped the news back to a different channel, and I got back to work, and I was just kind of watching from afar, watching them certify the election results. And I remember that moment where it started to get more violent and more abrupt. And I remember getting up from the desk and walking over to the TV and just staring at the TV like a 6-year-old way too close, watching people literally climb the walls of the Capitol and realizing how violent and real this was becoming. I couldn't get myself to work the rest of the day. I could not stop watching the TV. It felt very much like another 9/11 moment in my life when I was sent home in the 3rd grade to sit in front of the TV and do the exact same thing and just watch the terror over and over again. It's a moment that I'll never forget in my life, a moment where it was just me and the 4-legged animals at home, and we were talking to each other, at least I was talking to them, and saying, can you believe what's happening right now? And texting and talking to people. And then I did what I shouldn't have done, which was I took to Twitter and social media to see what everybody else was saying too. And I remember my heart sank, the tears welled up, and even more than that, the anger started to bubble. And this is kind of where I'll give a charge, if you will. This is where I'll close out, is that the anger and the frustration and the sadness welled up in me because I've spent my life's work working with underserved populations. And when I think about what happened a year ago today, I think about those underserved populations. When we lose our democracy, if we come that close to losing the democracy, it is those underserved populations who will suffer the most. Whether it's the work that I've done with refugees and immigrants, whether it's the work that we've done with historically Black neighborhoods, with voting rights legislation, with housing justice, if we lose the state of this democracy, those people suffer the most. Those are the people that our tears should be shed for. And those are the people that we should do this work for. And so I have to admit, though, that my anger has turned to resolve. And it has, because in the back of my head, I now continue to hear the words of John Lewis before he passed, saying that we've come too far and we won't go back and we're going forward. And so those words etched in the back of my brain, I just continue to get up every day and say, you know what, as divided as we may seem, as hard as this work is, as we sit on legislative calls at noon and hear about the slew of bills that are coming from the state house yet again, right here in our own state, much less at the federal level, this work is hard, this work is tiring, this work feels like it's never ending. But I hear his words, we've come too far. And let's not go back now. So let's do the work of community together. Let's let that moment be etched in our brain so that we can continue to move forward and do the good work that's necessary for the sake of democracy. So thanks for being out here.
Thank you. Our final speaker is Miss Debbie Billings, who's gonna talk to us. So do you wanna go around this way as well? Okay. All right, Dylan has a good model.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, everyone. I actually have a couple of notes, so I'm gonna
Okay.
refer to those. But just in thinking about as well, where I was a year ago, I was sitting at my desk working and checking in on the news, as I do too often, I think sometimes, and turned to PBS, and Lisa Desjardins was in the Capitol building. I don't know how many of you watched this, but hearing her describe what was going on outside, and then hearing her voice say, there was a booming sound in the background. And I watched the footage again today, and she says, protesters have now broken into the US Capitol. And you could see Judy Woodruff just kind of try to keep her composure, which she's amazing at, and shake her head no. And when she shook her head, it felt like it was a moment of capturing what so many of us, I think, were feeling of shock, disbelief, disappointment, just awe that this was, in a negative way, that this was actually happening. And when Lisa Desjardins said, this is an ongoing battle which police are losing, it looks like protesters are entering the Capitol at will. And then we all know what happened after that. So it makes me think about being here on the State House grounds where we are right now. And since I moved to Columbia about 15 years ago, then every single legislative session being inside this building, listening, testifying at subcommittee and committee hearings, being in the seats, watching the process, participating in the process. That's democracy. I teach courses at the University of South Carolina, and I'm always asking my students, how many of you have walked down the street and into the State House? How many of you have talked with your so-called representatives? I say so-called because sometimes they don't represent us, right? And they're not going to if we don't demand, right? That is part of what democracy is. Democracy, government by the people, right? But we've got to do our work to make that a reality. Democracy is not something that's just given to us. It's not something that just hangs around and works on its own. It's a product of our work, our collaborative work. And I feel like that's where, when I hear young people or older people saying, I'm not going to vote anymore, there's nobody that I like, that is fundamentally giving up on democracy. Now, we talk about the insurrection that happened a year ago today, but I think that is something that, of course, we're paying attention to. It was so visceral, it was so visible. But I think we also need to be very aware when we think about voting rights being, you know, kind of just scratched away and undermined for the last 2 decades, really. And that's another sort of insurrection that's not as sexy, right? It's not as tweetable, but it's something that is constant. It's been happening over the past decades, and it's something that we need to make more tweetable, more in the forefront, because it seems to me that we can have these moments of violence, and those are really scary moments, and we see people getting armed, and you know, and that is something to pay attention to. But if we're not paying attention to those everyday actions of our democracy being just, as I said, taken away act by act, bill by bill, voter suppression after voter suppression type bill, then that to me is one of the key pieces where the work needs to take place. So just in sum, I just had a couple of suggestions for people of where to take action. Things like going into the state house, going into your local legislative representatives, your senators, your representatives' offices, having them know your name, right? Calling your statewide election official to understand how elections are run in your state and the local elections, being a poll worker, participating in what's called election protection, which is nonpartisan, right? Where you are witnessing what is happening at those elections. You can verify that these are, you know, the processes are clean and fair, and then help people to register and get people out to vote. So there's a lot of good work happening here in South Carolina. We just need to strengthen it. We need more people to run for office. We need to engage in democracy. It's work. It's the work that we have at hand always. Otherwise, it will be taken away. So thank you.
Thank you. Now to conclude our event, we're going to have our candles. And I have a few. I hope I have enough for everyone. Let's see. So we're going to do our little candle lighting. Oh, it's sort of. Well, I was in the car on the way here. Yeah, we got plenty. That's good. So that's not good. Yeah, I hear you. Okay, you good? Okay. All right. So how do you turn them on? I don't know.
Tab out the bottom and then twist the flame.
There we go. All right. And twist the, yeah. Okay. Okay, so everybody has their light on. Okay, so we're gonna have a moment of silence for all the people who died in the January 6th event. Now, if somebody could lead us in this light of mine, we want to be reminded that we are the light in the darkness. And we're going to continue to speak up and speak out and make sure that the dark doesn't win. So let's do a couple of rounds of this little light of man. Who has a good voice? Dylan? Okay. Well, everybody knows this little light of mine? Okay. This little light of mine I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. One more time. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. And one more time, really loud. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. All right, thank you. Thank you so much for being the light today. Are folks down there in Charleston, are you still there, Heather?
I sure am. I'm the only
All
one left.
right. All right, well, thank you so much for bringing us our folks in Spartanburg and our folks in Hilton Head in the Low Country. We really are glad to be celebrating this as a state together.
Yes, yes, yes. You are quite welcome. And thank you for making sure that I was included in this very, very important gathering.
Well, we really appreciate it. We are bringing our Day of Remembrance to a close. So everyone, please take your signs with you, take your candles with you, and make sure you keep on spreading your light. We appreciate you being here tonight.
Happy New Year, everybody. Happy New Year.
Oh, okay. I will, let's see, I don't know if there's because I don't have a card or anything with my email on it.
Yeah.
If you came with.
Have you been?
With you?
No, but I was here. I came out myself.
Okay, did you have some questions?
No, I'm good. Do you need any help breaking down?
Yeah, you can help me break everything down.
Yes.
Okay, Catherine, you want me to end this?
Huh?
You want me to end the meeting? Or
Okay,
leave?
we're gonna go ahead and, I'm gonna go ahead and stop recording.
Okay.